Vasily and Transformation Talk Radio.
The vibration of change, that magical place where life shifts from struggle to ease, from stagnation to forward movement, from old ways of being to new ways of becoming. Yes, it can seem rather elusive to get there, but when you are in it, you feel it down to your very core, and it can positively affect everything in your life, from your relationships to your health and well-being, from your career path to your abundance, from the quality of your inner connection to the fullness of your self-expression. Here on the Christine Upchurch Show, we explore ways to get into that vibration of change with experts in the fields of consciousness, psychology, spirituality, health, healing, and science. Are you ready to step into your vibration of change? Hello, everybody. Welcome. You may be listening live here in the Seattle area on 1150 AM KKNW, or perhaps on Transformation Talk Radio around the world. You might be watching live on Facebook Live, on my professional page, or on Transformation Talk Radio. You might be listening after the fact on one of the dozens of podcasts it sends up. But wherever and whenever you're joining us from today, we're grateful to have you here. And we're going to be talking about bringing this concept of spirituality into every day, every moment. But before I introduce our guest, I want to say hello to the people behind the technology, Benny Mathers. Hi, Benny.
Hi, Christine, and happy March officially to you.
Yes, happy March to you as well. It's kind of exciting. We had 1 or 2 days there here in the Seattle area where, first of all, it wasn't raining, and secondly, it felt kind of warm, a little bit warm.
I think we've taken that turn. I think we're heading in the right direction for spring, and oh my God, I got summer! I can't wait.
I know. We live for our summers here.
I know, right?
Yeah. And hello, Olivia. Thank you for doing what you're doing over at TTR.
Of course.
So does your cat and dog, do they get spring fever when it starts to get warm?
You know, my dog gets really itchy.
Oh, interesting.
He gets reactive to that pollen too. So.
Oh, yeah. I got 2 cats with asthma, so I know how that goes.
Yeah. But he's excited about the sunshine, I'm sure. Just like me.
And I'm really excited about our guest today. It's interesting because she was a columnist for a particular publication that I had my first article published in. I ended up having several articles published. And she's also local. So when we're talking about the weather, she knows exactly what we're talking about here. And her name is Colleen Foye Bollen. And she believes that everyday life holds a whole lot of magical moments. She's got a book out called Savoring Life's Spiritual Moments, The Alchemy of Transforming Everyday Experiences into Life-Changing Events. And she shares a collection of engaging stories, and then she also has little exercises for us to do as well. She's an artist, and she loves expressing her creativity in a variety of ways. She's an author, obviously, a collage artist, and a storyteller. And the storytelling, I think, is so important. We're going to talk to her about that. She's also a Jinshin Jutsu practitioner. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And owner of a healing arts practice called Flowing Stillness, which I love the name of that. Combining her years of teaching with decades of writing, she conducts workshops about writing, spirituality, and creativity. And she lives locally here in the Pacific Northwest. I'd like to welcome our guest today, Colleen Ballen. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, thank you for having me on your show.
You know, you had a weekly column in, or was it monthly column in New Spirit Journal, right? Is it weekly or? It was weekly, monthly. Okay. And I think these days it's online, it's weekly. How long were you a columnist there?
I had a column called Everyday Spirituality for 5 years.
5 years, yeah. And it's funny because I started advertising with them right when they came out. Somehow I overheard a conversation in a bookstore about this new publication coming out. And I tend to pay attention to how my body feels to something. It's like, oh, I need to know more about this. And it's run by Krista Gibson and Rhonda Dixon, and it's just a wonderful publication. So, first of all, I want you to share with our listeners how you ever started writing and how you got involved in writing and ended up being a columnist.
I actually got started in writing because I chose to use cloth diapers for my children instead of throwaway plastic ones.
Uh-huh.
In the bag of fresh diapers once a month was a little publication that the diaper service put out.
Uh-huh.
And at the back of this publication one day was a little notice that said some moms got together to share their writings. And I thought it was just moms who sat around, eating tea cakes and talking about what they wanted to do. And I showed up late and unshowered with my 2 kids, and
such as the life of motherhood. Yes.
And they were powerful women. Oh my gosh, they had fax machines and deadlines, and they were clean and organized, and I wanted to hang out with them. So I kept going to their meetings, and they said, Colleen, you can't come if you don't submit something. So so I submitted something to the diaper service newsletter, which had gotten me started, and they accepted it. And I got a free month of diapers.
Oh, that's great. And you and I think, used the same diaper service. And I remember that newsletter, and it was the kind of thing where it would relate to motherhood. It would relate to issues with babies. And so when that clean bag of diapers got put on the porch, there was always a goodie in there of something geared towards mothers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I may have read your article. What was it entitled? Do you remember?
It was about my daughter being a picky eater.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had one of those too. So, like many people, you talk about in your book about how you went to lots of workshops, workshops on spirituality. And I think what happens for a lot of people, whether they're learning healing or approaches to becoming more conscious, they go to the workshop, they feel really enlivened, and then they go home and not much changes. Did you have that same experience?
Yes, I mean, it just kept happening. I'd be all excited, and I'd feel like, oh boy, I've got the light in me now. Sometimes I would be driving home from the conference, and I wouldn't even make it home before I'd hit traffic, and I got mad, and it felt like everything I had just learned was erased from my mind. And
right.
That was partly how I decided to do my book, is just for myself, I wanted to figure out, well, what would happen if I actually used these tools that I'm paying money to learn.
Right.
Over time, I found ones that worked for me and that I think worked for other people.
Oh. It's challenging, I think, because we have a tendency to compartmentalize spirituality. I have a real issue with that, because I think that the juiciest spiritual moments happen when we're going about our daily life. It has nothing to do with the meditation room per se. It has to do with how we're engaging with life at the moment. And here comes my cat, Indy. Speaking of engaging in the moment, how was it you went from being frustrated with traffic after your seminars, feeling like none of what you experienced that made you feel so good stuck? How'd you go from that to embracing spirituality on a moment-to-moment basis in life?
The first thing I had to do was to become aware of my process and what was going on, because until I knew what was happening, I had no hope of changing it. Mm-hmm. And so I just picked like issues that were kind of major for me. So I tended to be a little bit of a Eeyore, that depressed donkey and Winnie the Pooh. Yeah. I could find negativity in anything. I mean, you throw me a birthday party and I'll find something wrong with it. Uh-huh. And I had this horrible critic in my head. She was very, very mean. And I knew
she's lived in my head too, I'm sure.
Oh, maybe. also knew I had this wise woman voice in me that I didn't get to hear very well because the other one was so loud. So I picked a few things to work on. One was when I would drive and people would cut me off, I would get angry, but it was just like a flash. And so it was like, well, what if I try and unwind that? Is there a feeling that I'm feeling before, I get angry? And so I had to experiment with myself and just kind of wind it back until, my chest is getting tight. My face is getting flushed. My jaw is tight. This means that I may be getting angry. What can I do to stop that? And for me, singing with the radio is a really great one. Deep breathing, looking around for something that I appreciate. Like now here in Seattle, the spring flowers are starting to come out.
Yes.
Something like that can turn it. And so I kept doing that with different things. And I used a lot of that information in the articles that I wrote for New Spirit Journal. After 5 years, I kind of had a collection, and I thought, well, maybe, at some point this could become a book.
Right.
But I didn't want it to be about me per se. So the stories, some of the stories about me, some are about other people. But the key part, I think, is the make it your own story at the bottom of each piece that I write. And it has creative exercises, fun things that people can do just in their daily life. Like putting little moments of silence in. Instead of parking in front of the door of a store, park far away and don't look at your phone. And just have those few minutes of quiet time.
Right.
Like
there's something that I do occasionally when somebody cuts me off in traffic that seems really counterintuitive to keep me in alignment. I will swear. And then I'll laugh at myself. It's kind of like I've listened to the word that came out of my mouth and then I'll find it amusing. So it's kind of like, it's not the worst behavior in terms of the energy, but it's some of the bad behavior in terms of the action. I don't give anybody the finger or anything, but I might like just say, whatever, idiot. And then the observer in me will see how human I'm being and find it totally amusing. And that dichotomy kind of re-engages me in a more centered way. And I never would have expected that, years ago when I started taking those seminars, thinking swearing is going to help me stay more grounded and spiritual.
That just shows how personal it is, that what works for one person will not work for the other. And so we just need to figure out our own systems and what works for us.
Right. And I think that we have a tendency to take ourselves very seriously within the context of, quote, being spiritual. Can that cause problems if we are so serious about it all when we're trying to experience spirituality in our lives?
Well, that reminds me of a topic that relates to your book, the idea of seeking, where you're like really intensely looking and focused and kind of believe. And I've been this way myself, so I understand it. That there's an end point. If I do this and this and this, I will get the golden egg. I will get, whether it's enlightenment or whatever, there's a thing that I'll get. And I have found for myself, and I've talked with other readers who agree that there is no there.
Yeah.
It's a constant journey. Or we can fold it into our lives and not have it be a specific day, a specific time, a specific thing. That way, we get to have it all the time, which I think is wonderful. So whether I'm, out on a walk in the rain, or I'm taking my trash out and I'm kind of not really liking that, but I appreciate I have the abundance to have trash.
Right.
So there are little things that I can do every day that will bring it in, and I don't have to wait for someone to instruct me, and I don't have to wait for a specific day, time, location.
So we've been talking about being spiritual, but I want to know, for you, what does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to connect with our spiritual nature?
I was raised to be Irish Catholic, and my family was very, very involved with that. And when I realized that wasn't for me personally, I thought I had to throw out all religion, because that's what I had learned, that it was the only true church. And so if you throw it out, there's nothing else around.
Right.
I lived for a lot of years without any spirituality, and I really wanted it, but I didn't know where to get it. It was the summer that my two best friends were diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Two of them. Oh.
Broke me open. And all of these people that my friends knew were coming in and saying, well, there's this spiritual idea and that spiritual idea. And I was so broken, I was open to what they were saying. And so I saw how, I couldn't change what my friends were going through, but I could help make them happier during the time they had here. And I could help their family, and I could help myself. And to me, spirituality is internal. How do I feel being in my own body? Do I feel like scratchy and out of sorts, or do I feel peaceful and calm and competent? And I just prefer feeling happy and finding joyful things on a daily basis.
Right. And I love that you're talking about being in your body, because I think that for so many years, for decades probably, within the consciousness movement, the focus was sort of reaching outside of the body, so to speak. And I think that at this stage, it's really important for us to be grounding that higher frequency vibration into the body in order to not only change our lives, to change our planet, right? We've got to be lightning rods. Why is it to you important to be at peace in your body? That, what is that about?
My body is a barometer for me, and sometimes it'll just like vibrate, and then I know things are not as copacetic as they ought to be, and I need to sit quietly or go for a walk, or maybe I need to eat something. But I kind of have an alarm clock that goes off. And I also have gut reactions where sometimes I'll walk into a store and go, oh, no, gotta leave the store. And I don't know why per se I have to leave that store, but it's a physical reaction. I need to be in the store. And so I've learned to pay attention to that. And I know for other people, they have a voice they hear that says, get out of here.
Right.
So other people experience these things in different ways. And I think that's, again, one of the reasons why mindfulness is important. So you can learn, how do I feel things? How do I understand things? Okay, now I know what my mode is. Now what do I do with that? And so I think that's, those little quiet times are really important for all of us with our lives and being able to listen.
And I think that over the years, I've developed an understanding of my body's messages relating to like getting out of the store, or that something is in alignment. For me, I feel tightness in my solar plexus if something feels off. If something is really resonating with me, or I'm getting like this concept of this notion that it's true. I get this creepy crawly sensation on the top of my head, my crown chakra. So if I didn't have those tells in my body, I don't know if I'd be able to interpret the information as well.
Yeah. And I think, different people, different readers that I've talked with, they do have different ways. Some people see colors, some people, take messages from outside. So they might be in that store that you and I don't like, and they hear, the song, "Get on the bus, Gus, making new plans," and, and they
right.
go, let me listen to that, and maybe I should leave too.
Yeah. So I love the story about how you were led to becoming a healer. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about that?
Yes. At the time the story took place, I had been doing dream work for maybe 7 or 8 years. And I was planning a trip to Mexico. And I had a dream that a friend had a book I should read before I went. So I knew to follow through. So I called the friend and I said, "Do you have a book about Mexico?" And she said, "Well, I've got one about Mayans. Is that close enough?" I said, "Tell me the title and I'll find it." So she did, and I read the book, and it was very esoteric. I mean, I understood the words "the" and the words, "planet," but what the man was really saying, I did not know. And then I came to a part where it said, Jin Shin Jitsu has 26 safety energy locks. And my body kind of vibrated and went, woo, pay attention to that. So, I had that in my mind, and I went to Mexico, and I went to Chichen Itza, which is these ancient pyramids.
Right.
A very hot day, hot. And I just wanted somewhere cool to be. So I found this old building that used to be like a sacred sweat lodge kind of a building. Mm-hmm. I sat in there with my back against this cool wall, and I was just meditating for a few moments, and I heard this voice say, "We're not kidding. You need to learn Jin Shin Jitsu." I was like, okay, I can do that. So I came home and I looked it up on the internet, and it turned out that Jin Shin Jitsu teachers travel around the world. And so there was a teacher coming to Seattle in about 3 months or something like that. And I went to the class. I didn't have a session, a Jin Shin Jitsu session. I didn't talk to anybody. I just totally based it on the dream and the message from when I was meditating.
That's funny, because when I went into reconnective healing, I was reading a portion of Eric Pearl's book, and all of a sudden I got head to toe chills. And it's like, oh, I've got to go learn this. And I hadn't ever had a session either. It was just like this knowingness that it's in alignment with who I am in my path. And it's funny when you have that sense. It's like most people would be trying out sessions first, right? Oh, this is good. Maybe I should learn this. But no. Yeah, that's funny that you and I had that same experience. So you developed a healing center, essentially, right?
Yeah, I have a healing studio here in Shoreline. Yeah, I've been doing this practice now for 17 years.
So tell me a little bit more about that approach to healing. What is it that you do? Is it hands-on? Is it hands-off?
Well, right now in the pandemic, it's distance healing. But if a person were to come in for a session, they would lay on their back on a massage table. And I would listen to their pulses, and I would listen to what they have to tell me about, why they're there, what kind of issues, projects they might have. And then with Jin Shin Jitsu, there are little segments of each treatment that are called flows. So there might be the lung function flow, or there are 26 points on the body that are called safety energy locks, and sometimes they get locked or blocked. And much like in acupuncture, instead of with needles, we just hold different places until there's a pulsing that's the same between those two spots. And that means that line of energy is open.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. We need to go to a break, but when we return, I'm going to want to hear some more of your stories and some advice on how we can integrate our connection with our spiritual nature, in our everyday life. Stay tuned for more with the author of Savoring Life's Spiritual Moments, Colleen Foye Bollen.
All clear, you two? It sounds like, from the years of me listening, like it's a ground issue, like whatever you're plugged your computer into, like it's coming back through. So, I mean, you can't really do much about it today, but maybe there's a diffuser you can get, like to plug into like a strip, like your strip, whatever your computer is. I feel like there's like a ground issue coming through there. Like a hum, like a ground hum. Yep. Mm-hmm. Olivia and I are hearing that kind of coming and going too a little bit. It's not. Well, it's so I mean, whether your outlet has been grounded out properly, which then goes through your computer, or your computer needs to be grounded better as far as the strip. I mean, there's a couple things, but I'm not there. But is it an actual computer, like a desktop, or is it a laptop? Do you want to just like unplug it and just, because it'll run on a battery for a quick second, and if it goes away, that might be your answer. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe it's helping. So yeah. No, it got worse. Oh, no, that's okay. Hey, we're at a break. Guess we'll just stick with what we got. Thanks for trying. Yep. I need to unfortunately interrupt you. I got to bring you on here. You're welcome. Stand by.
Welcome back to the Christine Upchurch Show here on KKNW AM 1150 in the Seattle area and Transformation Talk Radio around the world. And of course, Facebook Live. By the way, if you're watching on Facebook, can you please watch over on my professional page and click like if you haven't liked the page yet. Appreciate that. And also, we have a YouTube channel. Our associate producer, Kyle, is getting these videos up onto YouTube. And so do a search on my name on YouTube, and please like the videos, sign up, subscribe, please. Today I'm talking to Colleen Foye Bollen, who has so many interesting stories in this book called Savoring Life's Spiritual Moments. And, I'm sure that I've read some of these things before when she was writing for New Spirit Journal, because New Spirit Journal is a fabulous publication, and there are always wonderful articles there. So one of the things we were talking about before the break, Colleen, was, how to assess if something's spiritual or not. But one of the things that you keep emphasizing is this concept of mindfulness. What does it mean truly to be mindful?
For me, it means to stop and listen to what's going on in my mind, and to understand how I am reacting to different things. And I would say a lot of people tend to do more than one thing at a time. So may not be totally focused on one project while they're doing the other project simultaneously. And so to just choose one thing at a time to do, and to pay attention to it. If you're washing the dishes, to feel that water and that soap, and maybe even have a moment of gratitude that we have water coming out of our faucets. I mean, there are people in the U.S. who don't have that right now. And so, there are ways just to live our lives where we can pay attention to what is happening in the now, and how we are personally, relating, responding to that.
By the way, Olivia, I am not seeing Colleen on my video feed now, and I haven't done anything to change it.
I still see her just fine there, Christine, so.
I'm not seeing her.
Okay. Well, I mean, I got you on my end. If you want to just kind of continue on with an amazing interview.
Okay, so, sure. Buddy, once upon a time, it was all audio, and now I can't see Colleen's face. It's like, wait a minute. So I absolutely agree that when we focus on the moment, Colleen, that there's so much nuance, there's so much fullness to each and every experience. It's kind of surprising, like how, I'm certainly not mindful all day long as much as I may try, but when I am, it's kind of surprising, like, oh, I start to feel the texture. I start to hear certain sounds. It's a very different experience than just sort of going about the daily routine, doing what I always do and not really thinking. It's kind of like when you get into a car, you can go from point A to point B and realize, I don't even remember the drive in between because of where my mind was at. Are there certain exercises we can do in order to kind of train ourselves to become more mindful throughout our day?
Yes, there are. And in my book, I have a number of different ideas. One might be when your phone rings, instead of answering it on the first ring, taking a moment to take, a couple of breaths and then answering it. And, that'll give you time to center yourself or, whatever this phone call may entail. And, if you're going on a walk, you might want to not wear headphones, occasionally, and just pay attention to, what are the sounds? I mean, right now with spring coming on, there are all these great bird sounds and
frogs too. Yes.
And just paying attention to some of those things. I see it as taking like little slivers of time and just kind of checking in. It can be just a millisecond and just, taking that breath and just stopping and maybe looking around or just feeling your body grounded to the floor and then moving forward. It doesn't have to be a huge, big production. It can be something that's just incorporated into your life. Before I walk out the door, I take a breath. Before I, park my car, I look to see, can I put in a few more steps where I have time to just think about what's going on in my world.
Right.
We don't think about what's going on in our worlds and our lives, and we don't know that we have a choice in how to change it.
Mm-hmm.
Said before, we need awareness.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't change something if I'm not aware of it.
Right. And by the way, I can see you again, which is great. Not sure about the technological glitch. I love the fact that part of this is also connecting with your dreams. You've got an amazing story about how you and your family's life was perhaps saved by a dream. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had a baby, a
Mhm.
newborn baby, and one night when I went to sleep, I had a dream that there was a house fire.
Mhm.
And so I mentally started planning out, wow, where will I go? What will I do?
Uh-huh.
And I woke up and, it was just a dream.
Mhm.
I'm okay. But I was very upset about it because it was very visual, and I really did plan out the escape route,
Uh-huh.
and I just felt like I wanted something positive to come from that negative dream.
Sure.
So I went around that day and I changed all the batteries in the smoke detectors.
Mhm.
And then again the next night, this fire dream was coming up again, and I was really mad, and I opened my eyes and it wasn't a dream. It was the real thing. The room was filled with smoke, and we had to rush through the house to get our baby. And as we ran out the front door, the kitchen exploded, and the kitchen was right next to the baby's bedroom.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that dream really helped me to plan out the escape route, and
Right.
it also, the batteries being changed, the smoke detector was what alerted us to there being a fire. So
Right.
in two ways, that the pre-dream of the fire helped us when the next day we actually had it.
Yeah, that's amazing because, oftentimes we'll have dreams about something and it may just be, the fire in your house could represent something else completely, and yet it was disturbing enough for you to actually make some plans and change the smoke detector batteries. That's an amazing story. Your connection to your dream, your knowing that your dream is meaningful and taking action based on that it sounds like it saved your baby's life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, the fire was coming down the stairs right by her bed, right by her bed.
Wow.
And then when we opened that front door, everything just exploded.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
So I know that you were married and then eventually you got a divorce, and I know that I've been through that too. It's a difficult and yet very fertile process, right? It's an opportunity to examine so much about life. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your experience about if that contributed to your connection with your spiritual nature, and if so, how?
I think I was already pretty connected to my spiritual nature before I
Mhm.
got the divorce. I wasn't as connected with my everyday person. When I first
Mhm.
separated, the first time I went to the grocery store, I walked in and went, I wonder what I like to eat.
Yeah.
Because it had always been, a joint decision before of, what to buy
Sure.
and what to cook. And so I bought all the things that I loved, and I went home and I had a potluck by myself.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. And for me, it's funny because I went through a stage where I felt like I had been like in the past. Symbolically, I had been on a motorboat with a GPS, knew exactly where I was going, what island, what location. And then suddenly, instead, I was out on a raft being tossed about by the waves, not even knowing if I could stay afloat, and realizing that I needed to just keep my head above, like stay on the raft, and that the universe would take me to the appropriate place. So there was a letting go that was necessary for me to come back into balance through the process of my divorce and post-divorce. And for me, that surrender piece has always been huge. And I've done a lot of resisting, the surrender. So it's, that was very helpful for me. Those things we resist sometimes are some of the most beneficial things we can experience.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So do you have other suggestions for our listeners about how to bring our spiritual nature into our moment-to-moment life?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a number of ways. One of the it's kind of silly, but it works, is doodling. I love doodling, just, scribbling pictures and stuff while I'm talking to people.
Uh-huh.
And it helps the information filter through in a different way.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they've actually done research on doodling. There are presidential doodles in their presidential libraries.
Uh-huh.
It just, it helps, the unconscious mind and the conscious mind kind of go in different directions so that a deeper kind of thinking can go on and process. So that's one way. Turning off, different ways of receiving noise, turning off music and TV and everything, and just having moments of quiet time, paying attention to dreams, potentially have a dream journal by your bed. And even if it's just the tiniest little thing, like you wake up and you remember the color green, if you write that down, and then, the dream maker knows you're going to pay attention, more will come. But when I first started doing dream work, I read a book, and this man in the book only remembered pink from his dream. That's all he could remember. And it changed his whole life. It changed his career. It changed his relationship. It changed every aspect of his life when he was in a dream group and they worked on, what does pink mean to you? And they
Wow.
created different things. Yeah, it was just very powerful. Yes.
So what about music? Does music play a role in connecting us with our spiritual nature?
I believe so. Music is very powerful. And there are so many different ways that you can use it. You can use it in movement. You can listen to different kinds of music because, in the West, we have kind of one way that music is played. But for other countries, they have some music that might sound dissonant to us.
Uh-huh.
But that kind of shakes things up in your mind at different ways. And so that
Uh-huh.
could be good to experience and to see, does that elicit new thoughts? They even use music for stroke victims and who have lost their ability to talk. And when they are first relearning how to talk, they do it in a very sing-songy way. And then they slowly take the sing-song out and the person can then speak. So
Interesting.
yeah, they found it helps with surgeries that sometimes people take in their own music
Uh-huh.
so that when the surgery is going on, their unconscious mind has that music that allows them to be calm.
Uh-huh. And what about humming? I was fascinated by the fact that you were suggesting that helps bring us back to our mindfulness, or it helps shift the physicality of our emotions. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, if you thought of our body as the face of a drum, so if you have a drum and you put sand on it and you kind of tap the edge of the drum, the sand is going to dance on that head. And so, with our body, we've got a lot of water in us.
Right.
And if we're humming, then we're changing the vibration of
Uh-huh.
the fluids in our body. Our skin might and our cells might be reacting.
Uh-huh.
So it helps shift things. It's like in the title of my book, one of the words is alchemy, and I really love that because it takes this and it turns it to that.
Right.
One thing and it transforms it. And music can do that, whether you're humming or you're singing or you're playing an instrument. Having that vibration change in your body is going to change the way that you're feeling and the way that you're perceiving things in that moment.
That makes perfect sense. And sometimes I find that when I'm inspired to listen to certain songs, that in turn inspires me to move in certain ways, which may end up like, working out a kink in my back or something. And I've got a good friend who she gets downloads that are song based, like, oh, the song that I'm hearing is blah, blah, blah. And then she'll have to like say the words to the song or look up the words in the song. And there's often a message for her in there, it's, and some of them are like really old songs, and yet, there it is. And so I find that fascinating because music has been a part of culture, forever, probably. And the vibration, the drumming, the singing, that makes perfect sense. It shifts our frequency.
Yeah. I have an inner jukebox is what I call it. And the songs will go off and I'll stop and listen to it and go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I need to shift what I'm doing here because of
right.
It's kind of like a message song.
And I get that on the radio. Sometimes when I'm driving, I'll listen to the radio, or I will be listening to like Pandora or something. And all of a sudden I'll get a message through a song. And it's like, oh yeah, I needed to hear that. Thank you. Thank you. Before we go any further, I want to make sure that our listeners and viewers know how to connect with you and what it is you offer. What's your website?
Yes. My website is ColleenFoyeBollen.com.
So it's Foye.
It's the middle part. Yeah. So
Bollen.
correct.
Yes.
And I also have an Instagram account, Colleen Ballen. It's pretty new. And on my website, I have a blog and I have places where you can contact me. Different readers have been able to send me messages about, what they like about the book. And yeah, so that's the best way. Yes.
So you're an artist too, right? You do collage?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how do you connect your artistic expression with these lessons that you've been teaching about connecting with our spiritual nature?
Well, I see images in my mind of what I want to create, and I don't think they come from me. I think that they come from spirit.
Right.
And I think the same is true with my writing. I can look at my book and read pieces, and I didn't write them.
Yeah.
I just didn't.
Yeah.
It came through me, and I used the keyboard to get them into the computer and into the book, but I don't think they're of me. Yeah.
Right. Or at least not the you in the body, but I think we all have a much bigger us, and there may be multiple versions of it in a variety of places and expressing itself, but that the I is much bigger, and of course that I think is connected to to this oneness of God or whatever you want to call it.
That wise voice I was telling you about.
Yeah. So do you have any other suggestions for how we can connect with our spiritual nature and how we can discern if something is really in alignment with our spirituality and if it's not.
I think that, you know, experimenting with different things is probably, you know, one good thing. I can remember one time and I have the story in my book of going to a rest stop in Oregon, and there were like these 6 really burly guys with snarly expressions on their face, and we pulled up our car and went, "Ooh, I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
But we really needed to stretch, and so, you know, we got out of the car. But I was thinking, you know, when I was in that car, and I was like, you know, I'm feeling, you know, fear. Why am I feeling fear? What do I want to do with that fear? And
Right.
so instead of just, you know, "Ooh, I feel fear, let's back up and get out of here," you know, I was willing to sit with it and think about it, you know. And I had just heard a woman talk who had been in prison for 20 years for a crime she hadn't committed.
Oh,
And when she got out, she realized, I mean, what she saw around her were all these people who had imprisoned themselves within their minds.
mm,
I'm seeing all of these people who are more imprisoned in the outside world than I was when I was in jail. I mean, they don't allow themselves to think beyond, you know, a certain point. They don't open up their minds and think, what are my options? What
Right.
choices do I have here? And so I think, you know, if you're going to change in your life, and whether it's to bring in spirituality or something else, you know, you need to explore, you know, read books, talk to people,
Right.
practice, you know, do I like meditating sitting down? Does that not work for me? Am I better if I walk and do things? Maybe that
Right.
doesn't work for me. Maybe I'm somebody, I need to do muscle things. Like for me, swimming has always been a really good place to work out issues.
Yeah. And I find it interesting that, I mean, I think meditation is very valuable, can be extremely valuable, but I think that people often have this perception that if they haven't been doing the so-called spiritual things, then they're not connected to spirit. And it's really a backwards way of looking at it, you know, because it's to enhance as opposed to being the connection. You know, we have the potential to always be connected.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I know I don't do it 100% of the time. And I don't think that I'm ever going to reach a point where, you know, I am elevated over other people. I see this whole process as something that makes my personal life more enjoyable. I'm happier. I'm more at peace in my body. I've learned to quiet the mean inner critic in my mind. Hear the peaceful person, you know, who lives there as well. And for me, that's spirituality.
Yeah, I love that. You've mentioned peace, I think 3 or 4 times in this conversation. And I think that is a wonderful state of being when we are there. And what a fulfilling, I mean, I know it's all a journey, but what a fulfilling goal to have is to have more inner peace, regardless of, you know, whether you are feeling a lot of connection with your intuition or, you know, you're having these so-called spiritual experiences. That peace sounds like a profound thing to have more of in life.
Right. And it may be a millisecond, but
Yeah.
it feels good when it comes.
It does. It
You know
does.
that it's a possibility.
Yeah. And that's something I think we all need more of right now. You know, we've had all these lockdowns and there's been all this fear associated with COVID. Peace sounds mighty good. So I just want to mention your website again. Colleen Foye, Foye, Bollen, BOLLEN.com for our listeners and viewers. And I want to thank you for joining me here today. And for, I'm sure I've been learning from you since way back with New Spirit Journal, and it's been great to kind of reconnect in that way. And it's been great to have you on the show today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank our listeners and viewers. Again, I know that there were some of you who got on and subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thank you for doing that. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.